Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi, GITTEN Daf Ches. We are on Zayin Amud Beis, 4 lines from the bottom of the Amud. Amar B'Zeira. Otzitz Nakav. You have a wooden flower pot which is Nakav. It's perforated. It has a hole in it. Hamunach Hagaba you say this, which is positioned on top of pegs in Eretz Yisrael, of course. Question: something growing within that otzitz, is it considered growing from Eretz Yisrael proper and is chayav and truma and maaser or not? Says Rabbi Yehuda, this type of otzitz is actually subject to machlekes. Bono la machlekes, Rabbi Yehuda v'Rabbanan. It depends on which shita you're going with. We had this discussion yesterday regarding something growing in a ship which is floating on a river in Eretz Yisrael. So it's sort of in Eretz Yisrael proper, but detached, removed from the ground. Same thing here with the otzitz nakav. So just like over there, says the Gemara, we had this machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda, who says, well, unless it's actually in contact with the ground, the boat is actually resting on the riverbed, unless that happens, anything growing within it is not subject to trumos and masros. It is not considered having grown in Eretz Yisrael. Whereas the Chachamim say, if you're in Eretz Yisrael, airspace, so to speak, if you're floating on a river which is in Eretz Yisrael, you're considered growing in Eretz Yisrael and is chayiv and trumos and masros. So Rabbi Yehuda compares a otzitz nakav to a boat. Amar Rava, says Rava, perhaps there's no connection. Dilma lohi, perhaps you cannot compare. Ad kan like Amar Rabbi Yehuda Hassan, perhaps. The only reason why Rabbi Yehuda considers something growing in a ship to be detached from Eretz Yisrael, and that's only by a ship. Ela b'sfina. You know why? Ha'asuy levroyach. A ship is constantly on the move. It's meant to be mobile, and therefore it's not considered connected to the ground. Something within it does not relate to the ground below. Whether it's a conceptual concept that is just a separate entity, whether you have a practical side to it as well, it's always moving. It doesn't get that consistent nurturing from the ground below. It's always on the move, and it's always, the connection, so to speak, is always being disrupted on a constant basis. So in any case, a boat is different. But a flower pot which is sitting in the same place, it's not meant to move around, that's perhaps different. Even Rabbi Yehuda would agree something growing within a flower pot is considered growing from the ground below, being that the flower pot is, of course, it's nakav, it's perforated as a whole, and ultimately it's drawing its nutrients from the karka below. So that's one way to differentiate. Rabbi Yehuda is considering a ship separate, but not an otzitz nakav. Inami. Or you can say the other way around too. Ha'adkan. Loika amir rabbanon hasam. Perhaps it's only by the ship. The Chachamim consider that to be connected to the ground. Ela be'sfina. You know why? Delay mafsik avira. Because there isn't any blank airspace between the ship and the ground below. There's water, which makes for an extension, so to speak, of the ground below. The maya, because water, ki ara, it's like ground smichta, thick, damya. It's like thickened earth, basically. It's like an extension. It brings the earth below up to the ship because it's sort of a solid mass. It's not just empty airspace. And therefore it's considered one continuous, a connection. Aval otzitz the mafsik aviroloi, but otzitz, which is just perched on top of these yosedes mid-air, who says that is considered a connection to the ground below, and therefore you can't compare a boat to an otzitz. So Reb Zera attempted to compare, and Rava disagreed. Continues the Gemara. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar, B'naharos Eretz Yisrael dekoli alma lo pligi. we had a discussion yesterday regarding an apparent contradiction. We had a stira between two braisos regarding a fellow who brings a get which was written on a ship floating in a river in Eretz Yisrael. He delivers a get from that ship to Eretz Yisrael. Whether you have to say b'fanei nichtav, b'fanei nechtam, do we consider the ship, which is the departure point of that get, do we consider the get to be originating in Eretz Yisrael, in which case there's no need for b'fanei nichtav, or is it considered like chutz la'aretz? We had a machlekes. And the Gemara figured that the machlekes between the two braisos really depends on the machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanon, right? Just like Rabbi Yehuda says regarding Truma and Maser, anything grown in a svina, floating even in a river in Eretz Yisrael, is considered detached from the ground, is not subject to the halachos of Eretz Yisrael product, Eretz Yisrael growth, because he considers it to be a separate entity, so to speak, even though it's in a river in Eretz Yisrael. Likewise, when it comes to the halachos of GITTEN, we don't differentiate. Loy plug. It's not really firmly on the ground. It's floating on a ship. It's not really part and parcel of the Eretz Yisrael proper, so to speak, and therefore it is subject to the halachos of chutz la'aretz regarding GITTEN as well. You have to say b'fanei nichtav, b'fanei nechtam. Whereas the Chacham consider it part of Eretz Yisrael regarding Trumas and Masros, and likewise regarding Hilchos GITTEN. That was yesterday's approach. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak takes issue with that. He says, no, of course not. When it comes to Truma and Maser, I can understand. There will be a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanon, even on something grown in a ship, even though it's floating in Eretz Yisrael, it's off the ground. It's not really directly getting its growth from the ground, and therefore you can see why there would be a p'tur of Truma and Maser according to Rabbi Yehuda. But when it comes to get, let's face it, it's in Eretz Yisrael proper. Whether the issue is lishma, etc., whether it's on firm ground or floating on the river, if it's in Eretz Yisrael, there's no reason to differentiate. Of course, there's no b'fanei nichtav, b'fanei nechtam requirement. However, says Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, the machlekes between the two Mishnahs regarding a get written in a ship is not speaking about a ship floating on a nahar in Eretz Yisrael. Rather, we're speaking about a ship floating, guess where? In the Mediterranean, in the Yam HaGodel, the sea adjacent to Eretz Yisrael. And depending where that ship is, it will determine its status and whether it's considered Eretz Yisrael. And there is indeed a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanon regarding that as well. What point in that Yam HaGodel is considered part of Eretz Yisrael proper, and what part isn't? So let's see again. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar, B'Naharas Eretz Yisrael, if the ship upon which the get was written would indeed be floating on a nahar in Eretz Yisrael itself, so true regarding Truma and Maser, there is a machlekes, but not regarding GITTEN. That's civilization based. That's related to the proximity to the communities in Eretz Yisrael, the lishma, all that. It wouldn't affect it. The kuli amali pligi, everybody would agree that the get is to be considered like a get written in Eretz Yisrael. Eloki pligi, when do we have this machlekes regarding b'fanei nichtav, on a get written on a ship, b'Yam HaGodel, a get written in the Yam HaGodel? Because in fact we do have a machlekes tanoim regarding delineation, the exact delineation of the western border of Eretz Yisrael, which of course borders on the Yam HaGodel, the Mediterranean Sea. The Sanya Ezehu Eretz Ezehu Chutz La'aretz. So first we speak about the land, the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael. So the pasuk describes the northern point of Eretz Yisrael as being connected with the Hayr HaHar. Okay, Hayr HaHar, that sort of double mountain, at the northern peak of Eretz Yisrael, the northernmost point of Eretz Yisrael. And as Rashi brings from the Targum Yerushalmi, the word Hoyrahar, which we have in the pasuk in Bamidbar Perek Lamed Daled pasuk Zayin, is translated as Turei Amnoin, and that's the term that the Brisa will relate to right now. We're going to refer to Hoyrahar, which is the northernmost point, northwesternmost point of Eretz Yisrael, as Turei Amnoin. Okay, so Ezeu Eretz, Ezeu Chutz La'aretz, you have a huge mountain sloping in all directions. At what point is it Eretz Yisrael? At what point is it not? Very simple. The part of the mountain which slopes southward towards Eretz Yisrael, that is in fact Eretz Yisrael. The part that slopes towards the north, out of Eretz Yisrael, that is considered Chutz La'aretz. Now let's deal with the sea now. Okay, so we spoke about the western Gevul of Eretz Yisrael being marked by the Yam HaGadol, the Mediterranean Sea. What about little islands within that sea? How do we treat them? Hanasim, little islands, Shabayam. So the answer is like this. If it's enveloped, it's surrounded with Eretz Yisrael proper, it's considered inside. Otherwise, it's considered outside. So if you have Eretz Yisrael, okay, to the east, and we have Eretz Yisrael really curving at the west. So the Yam HaGadol sort of is inverted into Eretz Yisrael. Take a look at a map today. That's exactly what it looks like. There is a sort of a semicircle of inversion. The Yam actually juts into Eretz Yisrael. So the western border of Eretz Yisrael is like sort of a semicircle. Okay. The northernmost tip, northwesternmost tip, of course, is Hoyrahar, Turei Amnon. And the southernmost tip, southwesternmost tip, is called Nachal Mitzrayim. Okay, now before we begin the Brisa, we need to know that there are three sort of sections that we're going to deal with. Suppose we run an imaginary line from the Hoyrahar up the north, down to Nachal Mitzrayim, the southwesternmost tip. Okay, so anything within that an imaginary line, even the sea portion and the islands within it, is considered halachically as part of Eretz Yisrael. So Eretz Yisrael sort of extends into the Yam HaGadol, provided that's within that imaginary line running from the northwesternmost point, Hoyrahar, down to Nachal Mitzrayim, the southwesternmost point. So that's L'Kul Yam. Everybody in agreement that the Nasin Shabayam, the little islands within this arc, are within Eretz Yisrael proper. Okay? Now, Rabbi Yehuda takes it a step further. He says any portion of the Yam which is opposite Eretz Yisrael, all the way down to the Atlantic. But if you're opposite Eretz Yisrael, between Hoyrahar and Nachal Mitzrayim, all the way out, it is considered part of Eretz Yisrael regarding all these halachas, and specifically regarding writing a get. Okay? Now, all agree that anything beyond Hoyrahar to the north, anything beyond Nachal Mitzrayim to the south, of course, is out of bounds. So there are three sections, right? Again, we have Hoyrahar at the northwesternmost point, we have Nachal Mitzrayim at the southwesternmost point, and we have that sort of Yam HaGadol arcing into Eretz Yisrael. Anything within that imaginary line towards the east is considered Eretz Yisrael. Beyond that imaginary line, going westward, according to Rabbi Yehuda, if it's within the imaginary lines running from Hoyrahar westward and Nachal Mitzrayim westward, is also considered within. Then the third section is beyond those lines, up and down. That is certainly out of bounds. Isani, Ezo Eretz. So let's see the Brisa again. Ezo Eretz, Ezo Chutz La'aretz, Kol Sheshafeya V'Yered, Mituri Amnon V'Lefnim, Eretz Yisrael. So again, we're speaking about the mountain itself, up north. Anything sloping inward is Eretz Yisrael. Mituri Amnon V'Lechutz, any sloping outward towards the north is Chutz La'aretz. Hanasin Shabbayam, the islands within the sea. Roi Noisam. We draw this imaginary line, Ki'ilu Chut, like there's a line, Motuach Aleim, drawn over them, Mituri Amnon, from Turi Amnon the north point, Ad Nachal Mitzrayim, the southernmost point. Menachot L'Lefnim, anything inside that line, Eretz Yisrael. Menachot L'Chutz, anything beyond that line towards the west, is Chutz La'aretz. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, he takes it a step further. We draw a line from a her all the way to the west. And likewise, from Nachal Mitzrayim, Kol Shekeneged Eretz Yisrael, anything of Yam HaGadol, which is opposite Eretz Yisrael, Harihuk Eretz Yisrael, is treated like Eretz Yisrael. How's that? Shenemar, the pasuk says, Ugvul Yam. What is the gvul of Yam, of the the western gvul of Eretz Yisrael? Yam HaGadol. Right, that's the Yam HaGadol. And the pasuk continues with the words of gvul zeh hi alechem gvul Yam. So that teaches us that not only the other islands, but even all the way out to the west, because the pasuk repeats the word ugvul. It says it once and again to tell you that the gvul extends into the Yam as well, all the way out till the Yam Ukianis, which is the Atlantic Ocean. Vanas and Shabbat Staden. What about islands that are to the north and south of this imaginary line? So again, we have a line running from Har all the way to the west, and Nachal Mitzrayim all the way westward. What about things that are above that imaginary line and below that imaginary line? That certainly is out of bounds. Roin Oisan. We view them as follows: Ki'ilu chut matuach aleim, as though there is an imaginary line running. Mikefluria. Kefluria, Rashi says, is a city sitting on top of Har. So that's the starting point of this imaginary line running all the way Vad Yam Ukianos till the Atlantic. Nachal Mitzrayim, let's go down to the south now. We started Nachal Mitzrayim, we run this line, Vad Yam Ukianos, all the way out. Anything within these two lines, between these two imaginary lines, Menachot Lefnim is Eretz Yisrael, Menachot Lachut, anything beyond those imaginary lines is Chutz La'aretz. Says the Gemara, Rabbanon Hayagvul Mayavidilei. Why do Rabbanon use the extra word Ugvul to teach you? They disagree with Rabbi Yehuda. So why does the pasuk repeat Ugvul if it's not coming to incorporate part of the sea? That's coming to include the islands within the ark. Right? So it includes those, but not beyond the ark, all the way out to the Atlantic. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, those islands within the ark is Pashat, it's self-understood, they're considered part of Eretz Yisrael, they're enveloped Eretz Yisrael, they're surrounded by Eretz Yisrael, and therefore, you wouldn't need a raya for that. Rather, the word ugvul in the pasuk is meant to extend the gvul all the way out to the Atlantic. So bottom line, we have three sort of sections we're dealing with. As we explained, Eretz Yisrael stretches from Har till Nachal Mitzrayim to the south. But it also arcs around part of the Mediterranean. Section 1, all agree is part of Eretz Yisrael. You run the line from Har down to Nachal Mitzrayim. Anything within that arc is part of Eretz Yisrael. Even the islands within the sea. Anything beyond that line, so you take the Har and you run a line all the way down to the Atlantic, and the same you do with Nachal Mitzrayim. Anything within this imaginary section, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is part of Eretz Yisrael. According to Rabbanan, is not. Anything beyond that section, north or south, all agree is out of Eretz Yisrael, and that's what Rav Nachman Yitzchak comes to explain, that the Brisa, the two Brisas, which seem to disagree regarding the Tchum of Eretz Yisrael, regarding Gittin, well, we're speaking about the midsection here, the part that's beyond the ark, running to the Atlantic. So the part across Eretz Yisrael, which according to the Rabbanan is not considered Eretz Yisrael, and a get written there is like written in Chutz La'aretz, whereas Rabbi Yehuda holds, no, a get written besfina on a ship in that section is treated like Eretz Yisrael. Okay, once we're on the topic of Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, let's go on to another shayla regarding Syria. Syria is roughly where Syria is today, and that was captured by David HaMelech. It's called Kibush Yachid because, well, actually it's Machlekes Rashi and Tosfos. Rashi says, why is it called Kibush Yachid? Because it wasn't, wasn't Klal Yisrael doing it for the sake of capturing Eretz Yisrael, like as at the time of Yeshua, it was David HaMelech extending and establishing his kingdom. That's why it's called Kibush Yachid. It was captured by an individual. Tosfos learns a bit differently. He says it's a matter of sequence. You see, if they would have first conquered the whole Eretz Yisrael and then extended their borders, that would have been Kibush Rabbim. But since when David HaMelech captured Syria, there was still sections of Eretz Yisrael which were not yet captured, and that's why it's not considered on the same level as Kedushas Eretz Yisrael. Because things should ideally go, in order. First the entire Eretz Yisrael, and then you extend Eretz Yisrael, and therefore, since it was done this way, it didn't really attain the status of full Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, as we're going to see soon in the Gemara. Okay, so the following question was asked. So there's a halacha later on in Daf Gimel and Gittin. If one has an evet, talking about a non-Jewish slave, evet Kanani, of course, already has some, privileges, some chiyuvim, he's chayiv in mitzvahs like an isha, and you're not meant to sell him to somebody in Chutz La'aretz. So if you're living in Eretz Yisrael, you're meant to keep him there because, you're forcing him to leave Eretz Yisrael. So if you do so, if you sell him off, he goes lecherus, he goes free. What about selling him to Syria? Because, Syria to a certain extent did have Kedushas Eretz Yisrael. So how do we deal with Syria? Syria. Is it as though he sold him off to somebody out of Eretz Yisrael? Or perhaps it doesn't have the same status, and therefore he does not go free. He responded to them, I'll bring you a raya that it is considered like having sold him to Chutz La'aretz. Tanisur, take a look at our Mishnah. Our Mishnah in Gittin, Daf Beis Amud Aleph. Rabbi Yehuda, Akoy Eretz Yisrael Gittin. When it comes to Hilchos Gittin, Akoy is considered part of Eretz Yisrael. You don't need to say B'fanei Nechta. Says the Gemara, let's make a diuk. Le Gittin in only pertain to Hilchos Gittin because they're knowledgeable with Lishma, etc., etc. But apparently, when it comes to other halachas, like selling your slave to somebody in Akoy, it is not considered part of Eretz Yisrael. Lukolshkein Syria, the Merach Ketuva, and certainly Syria, which is even further out and removed from the Eretz Yisrael Jewish civilization, and certainly he has a right to resist being sold out to the Makim Chutz La'aretz where the Goyim live, and therefore, of course, he has a right to be Yotze Lecheres, to go free. Tanu Rabbanan b'shloisha drachim shaftzat Syria l'Eretz Yisrael b'shloisha l'Chutz La'aretz. Once on this topic, actually there are in three ways Syria is comparable to Eretz Yisrael, and in three ways to Chutz La'aretz. Simon Av Barak Afra Tamei Chutz La'aretz. So we know that the Chachamim will geyser Tuma on Chutz La'aretz proper. Many reasons were given, whether it's because the Goyim are not really careful where they bury their mason, or is it because the victims of the Mabul are strewn about all over Chutz La'aretz. In any case, Chachamim considered offer of Chutz La'aretz like Tamei. And likewise, Syria has the same status. What we just said, a person sells his evet out to Syria, it is treated like Chutz La'aretz. If I maybe get me Syria, and likewise, if a person delivers a get from Syria, maybe Chutz La'aretz, it says, he brings it from Chutz La'aretz, and he has to say B'fanei Nechta. So, 3 matches to Chutz La'aretz. And in the following 3 things, Syria is comparable to Eretz Yisrael. Number 1, Chayeves b'maser b'shvius. It has a certain amount of Kedusha that, in fact, there is chiyuvim of trumos and masras, like Eretz Yisrael, v'roitzel lekanos lo b'tahara nichnas. And although Eretz Ha'amim Chutz La'aretz typically is considered tamei, but in Syria you have a way to protect yourself. There's a way to get in there and not be affected by the tumas Eretz Ha'amim. We'll see soon. And thirdly, v'hakoyne soda b'Syria. If one purchases a field in Syria, we treat it as though he's purchasing a field Beparvari Yerushalayim, the outskirts of Yerushalayim, and we'll see that coming up soon as well. Explains the Gemara. Let's go through these 3 things. We compare Syria to Eretz Yisrael with respect to Chayeves b'Maser b'Shvius Eretz Yisrael. It has the halachas of Maser applicable, the halachas of Shvius applicable. Why is that? Because this Tana holds, even though Syria is only considered a kibush yachad conquered by an individual, as we explained before, Still, Shmei Kivush, it is considered to have been incorporated into the Kedushas Eretz Yisrael. We have a pasuk in Dvarim Yud Aleph Chav Daled. Pasuk says, anywhere you conquer, anywhere you extend your reign to, is considered part of it. It belongs to you, and it's considered Kedushas Eretz Yisrael. So it's the pasuk, and the Sifridi explains it, elaborates it, and basically we have the ability to add on to Eretz Yisrael. And Syria is considered as such. Number 2. So although the Tumah applicable to Chutz La'aretz applies to Syria as well, but not on the same level. There is a way to get in there and remain Tar. Asks the Gemara 1 second. You just told me that the offer of Syria is Tummy. Answer. Let's say you travel into Syria inside this large-sized box, chest, or whatever. That will protect you from the Tumah of Chutz La'aretz. Something which you cannot do under ordinary circumstances in regular Chutz La'aretz. So Syria's Tumah is sort of on a lower level, and therefore it allows for this type of protective measure. The Sanya. Hanichnas La'aretz Amen. If a person enters Chutz La'aretz, regular Chutz La'aretz proper, B'shid the Teva Migdal, in this large-sized chest, Rabbi says it doesn't help you. Rabbi Yisrael read the Batar, Rabbi Yisrael says Yitar. And Rashi explains based on Gemara and Eruvin. This is called oil zorak. It's an oil. It's a large-sized chest, which is considered like its own entity, its own domain. It's big enough to be considered like an oil. But since it's zorak, it's moving around, it's on the move. It's not firmly positioned, stationed in its place. And since it's mobile, it's called oil zorak. And Rebbe holds it doesn't create its own entity, it doesn't protect you. Says the Gemara, that only applies to Chutz La'aretz. Because once the chest doesn't protect you, you're sort of exposed, halachically exposed, and therefore you're hovering over the offer of Chutz La'aretz, which is not only metame upon contact, but even by just hovering above it. Oil, the airspace is tame. But that's unique to Chutz La'aretz and doesn't apply to Syria. That's why if you enter Syria in this manner, even Rebbe agrees that you're tar, because the airspace in Syria is not tame. Explains the Gemara. Even Rebbe who says you're tame, that's only Eretz Amim. Only by ordinary Chutz La'aretz, the Gazru, Al Gusha, Valavira, because the Gzera of Tumah applies to the actual glob, the actual earth itself, contact with the earth, or Valavira, even the airspace. So that once you're in this non-qualifying capsule, you consider it exposed in your tummy. Aval Surya. When it comes to Syria, although there is Tumah, but not on the same level. Al Gusha Gazru, sure, the actual earth is tummy. Al Avir La Gazru, but not the airspace. So you're protected in this capsule because you're not actually touching the ground below. Now, what was the third comparison between Syria and Eretz Yisrael? If you buy a property in Syria, is considered having bought a property in Yerushalayim itself. What's the, how does this, what does this pertain to? Amar of Sheshes, Loimar. This comes to tell you like this. Shekoisfen olav oinai. Oinai is a document, a purchase document. You can actually sit down and write a purchase document. Bafilu b'Shabbos, even on Shabbos. If you're purchasing property in Syria. Says the Gemara, Shabbos HaKataita, how could you suggest that one is allowed to write a shtar on Shabbos? Says the Gemara, Amar Rava, as Rava explained to us, just like Rava in Mesechel Shabbos, pertaining to a chayla, says you can instruct a guy to do it for you. Hachinami here as well. Was speaking about instructing a guy to write the shtar for you, and you're allowed to do that even on Shabbos. Why? Even though it's an issa d'Rabbanan to instruct a guy to do malacha for you on Shabbos, here it's different. Because of the chashivas, the importance of what you're doing, misham yishav Eretz Yisrael, because since you're contributing to the inhabitation of Eretz Yisrael, and Syria is considered part of Eretz Yisrael with respect to this halacha, because Rabbanan suspended their halacha of Amir La'akim. And Tosfos points out this only applies to this type of mitzvah, but otherwise you're not allowed to use the services of a guy even for the sake of mitzvah. And the Rivash actually in Siman Shin Pei Zayin was asked, a fellow was moving up to Eretz Yisrael, and he wanted to know whether he can, ride a ship on Shabbos, have a guy do malacha, because of mitzvahs yeshiva Eretz Yisrael. He says, no. The Gemara is speaking about a very specific thing. You're inhabiting Eretz Yisrael, which is, he says, the Klal Yisrael interest to establish Klal Yisrael's presence in Eretz Yisrael, and Kedushas Eretz Yisrael. That's l'dora doris. That's something which is paramount importance. And he says that was important enough that the Chachamim allowed one to use the goy for malacha on Shabbos, if it's to accomplish that. But one's personal interests, even mitzvah interests, such as going up and moving to Eretz Yisrael, that pertains to himself. It doesn't really benefit sort of the national, the Klal Yisrael, long-term interest. Interesting distinction there. And therefore he says this is specific to purchasing a plot of land, but not to a personal move to Eretz Yisrael. Okay, bottom line, Surya is sort of iffy in between Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz. So with respect to certain halachas, it's treated like Eretz Yisrael, otherwise like Chutz La'aretz. Regarding a get, we treat it like Chutz La'aretz. Tanu Rabban, Eved Shevi Gitoy. Suppose an Eved brings his own get, meaning the Shtar Shichver, the release document, written by his master. So his master, his rabbi, made him a shliach. Take this shtar and bring it to a certain town, and over there you can actually activate this shtar, you'll be set free. The halacha is that just like when one delivers a get isha, he has to declare those 4 words, b'fanei nichtav, b'fanei nechtam, to ensure that we have certification about the chasimas, that genuine, they're not forged. The same applies to a shtar shichra of an eved. Eved shevi gitei, v'kosabay. And within the shtar, we find the following words: atzmecha unachasai knunlecha. So we have a very generous master. He says, look, you are going to be your own man. You can acquire yourself, so to speak, meaning you can go free. I'm giving you independence. And all my possessions are yours as well. And it's all within the same shtar. So this shtar sort of enwraps 2 different things. It is meant to release the Eved and set him free as a shtar shichrur, because of the word atzmecha, and also like a shtar matana. I'm giving you everything I own. What happens now? Says the Gemara, we split the 2. Atzmei kana, he acquires himself, he goes free, because he brought his get and he said, b'fanei nechtam. You can do that. You're trusted, you're believed, with respect to the kashrus ashtar, with respect to your own shichr, your own status. Just like the Isha can bring a get and say b'fanei nechtam and use it for her own divorce. But nechasam lo'ikana. But he can't acquire his possessions. He can't be zoich in the nechasam. You know why? Because that doesn't pertain to his personal business. The nechasim, they're treated like any other dini mamnas, any other financial issues, and for that you need really edim to be mekayim the shtar, like any other shtar. So even though it's within the same document, we look at 2 transactions with respect to his own going out free. That we have the takana, just like an Isha who brings her own get is believed on the kashrus haget with respect to her own status. She can go and consider herself divorced based on that and remarry. And likewise, the Eved can now go free. But when it pertains to his zechus to acquire his master's properties and possessions, that's like any other dini mominus. And for that, you need really edim to be mekayim the shtar. You can't just walk away with his master's possessions. Interesting split there. Now, let's say it's all in one expression instead of atzmecha pertaining to the Eved's status and the word nechasai pertaining to the properties, so we can split them. What if it's all in one word? Can we split that? That's a bit more difficult. So the Bnei Yeshiva asked as follows. Let's say the Eved shows up with a shtar which says Kol Nechasai Knuin Lecha. Everything I own now goes to you. Everything I own, including yourself. Mahu. How do we deal with this? Here we're going to find it a bit more difficult. To split the Eved going free from his acquisition of the Nechasim. It's sort of in one word. Mahu. How do we deal with this? Amar Abaye. He gets the green light on both. We don't split it. Mitoich shekana atzmai. Kana nechasim. We don't split it. Since he's neman, he's trusted, he's believed with respect to his own status. We believe the b'fanei nechtam on that. So that's it. Once the ishtar has been proven to be real and legitimate with respect to his own status, he gets the nechasim as well. Amalei Rava. Rava responds to Abaye, 1 second. I understand how he can go free. He can acquire himself. Well, that's like any other get. It's like any other get. Just like an isha is believed on her own get, the Eved is neman on his own star. But he can't just take his master's possessions. It's like any other shtar that needs to be certified with two edim. Abaye responded, he changed his mind, he says, you're right. You're right. It's true that if you would have an isha bringing her own get, she would be neman, a special takanas chachamim, she would be believed. If you have an eved bringing his own shtar, he would be believed. We don't differentiate between the isha and the eved. There's a halacha that you bring your own shtar, you can say b'fanei nechtam, but not pertaining to accessing somebody else's property, that's something else. And therefore, since he's not going to have kinyan on the nechasim unless he has two edim to certify the shtar, he's not going to be set free as well. It's basically all or nothing. Amalei Rava responded, 1 second. I understand he can't get the nechasim. Mididahava. Kim stars down, I understand, because it's like any other star that needs to be certified with two edim. But let him at least get himself back. Let him at least go free. Mididahava get isha. It's like any other get that an isha brings. The chamu masakin. You bring your star, you're believed. So sort of Rava was going back and forth. Elama Rava. So Rava says like this: we split it. It's not all or nothing. Whether it's the first situation where he sort of used two different ways, two different words there, atzmcha and nechasai, right? One term referred to the Eved status, one term referred to his acquisition of the nechasim, or in the second case that we're just learning now, when he said kol nechasai, he sort of wrapped it all together in one expression. We're able to split the results. Atzmai kana, the Eved goes free because he's believed by saying b'fanei nechtav, pertains to him. Eved is believed like an isha is believed, nechasim leikana, but he can't access the properties. For that, we have to view it like any other dini mamnis, which needs proper aid. Amali Rav Adabar Masnal Rav. Come on, whose shita are you following? Rab Shimon the Amar Palgina de Bura? You're going like Rab Shimon, who says that in fact we can sort of split one expression into two. It's sort of one sentence in the shtar. Kol nechasai, everything. And you're sort of taking that, splitting into two. Dealing with the Eved on one track, with the Nechasim on another track, which is a great Chiddush. The Snan, as we're going to see in the Mishnah, Bezat Hashem will continue tomorrow. Okay, so we started with the halacha of the Otzitz Nakav, something grown within a flower pot, within Eretz Yisrael proper, but suspended mid-air. Initially, the Gemara figured it was machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanon, just like by the produce grown in a ship. The Gemara says no, perhaps there's room to differentiate between a ship and the Otzitz Nakav. Rav Nachman Yitzchak tells us, a get written in a floating ship within Eretz Yisrael, of course, is part of Eretz Yisrael. The question between Rabbi and Rabbanon is in terms of how far we stretch Eretz Yisrael. We had the islands within that ark, which is certainly part of Eretz Yisrael, We have the islands beyond the ark, but opposite Eretz Yisrael proper, all throughout the Mediterranean, all the way to the, all the way out. According to our Rabbanan, that's out of Eretz Yisrael. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it is. And we have the areas beyond that, which are certainly out of Eretz Yisrael. How do we look at Syria, which is sort of, half in, half out? It was part of Eretz Yisrael, but it was Kibush Yachid. So we have 3 and 3. In some ways it compares to Eretz Yisrael, in some not. In some not. We had a Chiddush about using a goy to complete a transaction, Mishum Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, even on Shabbos. And we have the back and forth between Abaye and Rava regarding an Eved who brings a get. How much is he believed? How much is he not? We started today. Be'ez Hashem will continue tomorrow. All the best to you and Hatzlacha Rabbah.